How can you possibly be like, I denounce Western imperialism, and then look at NATO when you're like, oh, we as socialists need to support NATO? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, NATO is just a sort of formalization of the imperial relations of Western imperialism. It's a way for them to bring in nations into their sphere of influence in just a more formal sort of way, by literally saying, oh, hey, you're a member of our defensive alliance now. Wink, wink. Our defensive alliance that bombed Libya for defense. And even like when we're talking about that, like these people don't seem to understand anything about why it exists. Like it's just set up to do anti-imperialist defense just in case imperialism happens. They see the world as in like this sort of liberal institutional framework. You know, Western imperialist nations like make some organization, which is essentially just a meaningless front. And they would be doing the same thing that organization is formally for anyway. And then they're like, oh, but this organization has a constitution or a charter or whatever. It says this, and this is how it's supposed to work. And then it goes and does things like says, we are invading Afghanistan to defend the United States of America. It's just like a formalized way of saying what they would be doing anyway. Of doing what they would be doing anyway. And they operate as a bloc, even outside of NATO anyway. It's so fucking weird that they somehow conceive of it as separate from Western imperialism. Like, sure, it's literally run and founded by the most imperialist Western nations to sort of further bring usually weaker nations into their sphere of influence, but somehow it's not imperialist by itself, right? And that's the argument that our friend Ian Kaczynski, or whatever, aka Vorsh, used. I don't understand how he can say this and feel like it's insightful.
Yet to see anyone provide for me a convincing argument. What exactly does NATO do that is imperialism? Please let me know. Oh, you know, you've Yugoslav and Libya. Okay, fine. Well,
what exactly does NATO do that is imperialism? List 2 examples. What a brain! What a fucking brain! Like, even on the surface, like, he's ignoring everything that I just said about it, and then he goes on and says, what does NATO do that is imperialism? Oh, those things. I mean, apart from those, oh my God, what does Russia do that is imperialism? I mean, apart from invading Georgia and Ukraine, you know, apart from that, fucking moron, man.
The European powers would have been incentivized to do that either way.
Yeah, exactly. Is that really his argument?
The NATO alliance wasn't the thing that allowed that to happen. It was just framed through that. It seems a little odd to frame it that way. Hassan was talking about NATO.
That's so fucking stupid, man. Like, wait. So NATO is just a vehicle for Western imperialism? Just like a sort of means to like formalize it and like frame it in terms of like liberal institutions, but it's otherwise pretty much something that they would do anyway? Yes, that's true. How do you think that makes NATO good? How do you think that absolves NATO? How does that make NATO not imperialist? What the fuck? It's like saying the IMF is not imperialist because Western countries would be giving loans to third world predatory loans with forced neoliberalization to third world countries anyway. Yeah, they would, but they're still doing it through the IMF. It is true. NATO is just a sort of formalized manifestation of liberal military imperialism, of, you know, bringing more nations into the fray of the US's sphere of influence militarily. Just like how the IMF is a vehicle for Western imperialist nations to align the third world with their economic goals and with their bloc. It's just such a dumb fucking argument. That's precisely why NATO is imperialist, because of that. How can you have a military organization that has factually engaged in aggressive actions at least 3 times? He's technically correct. Yes, these countries would be doing all of this if NATO didn't exist too. So fucking what? It's like saying the USSR doesn't do anything, okay? It's just a union of Soviet socialist republics. The ones who do stuff are the Soviet socialist republics. The European Union? You know, those nations would be imperialist anyway. Why are you rallying against the EU? It's so fucking dumb. How do they think these are good points? NATO isn't imperialist because the imperialist nations would do imperialism anyway. Dude, you just absolve NATO completely. It's not imperialist anymore. Great fucking job. You're a genius. It just boggles the fucking mind, man.
Feels like he supports the Holocaust.
The Axis wasn't imperialist because it was comprised of 3 imperialist nations that would have been imperialist anyway. It's just self-evidently stupid. I don't understand how anyone can watch that and think that he just like made a good point. I would watch the entire video, but at this point, I can't fucking handle Vorsh, man. He's so stupid. He's so stupid. And everyone who watches him and thinks he's insightful is even dumber. Like, he's not just a liberal, but he's a dumb liberal. Because he tries to like frame what are liberal positions in a way that he seems to think is somehow compatible with like socialism and being against capitalism, etc. And he just fails completely.
If you don't trust the CIA,
that's a
then
pretty
who do
hard
you trust?
fucking thing to do. You know, if you're gonna support liberal positions, you need to do it so in a liberal way.